The Valdareth Duel from the Killer and Keeper universe. A blood-red sky looms over the scorched plains of Valdareth, where jagged obsidian spires claw at the heavens like the talons of a buried god in agony. These spires, called the Harrowfangs, rise not as mere stone, but as the fossilized spines of a sky-serpent, crucified upon the firmament in a rite of cosmic treachery. Each fang is etched with cryptic runes charred into their flanks, symbols no tongue dares translate aloud, believed to be the hymnal scars of Atlas's lament. During blood eclipses, the spires weep molten tears and hum with an infrasound that shreds the dreams of those who wander too near. Monks of the morning choir once claimed the Harrowfangs are a prison for the remnants of Atlas's wrath, their tips wrapped in ritual bindings forged from Saint Bone and Void Iron to keep the sky from splitting anew. Travelers speak of shadows crawling within the glassy obsidian, whispering rites in languages too ancient for sanity to hold. The plains themselves are a charred mosaic of ash dunes and shattered basalt ridges, broken by chasms that belch sulfurous gas and echo with the voices of the storm dead. Crimson sand mingles with black glass in dune spirals that hiss when trod upon, while rootless bones, some humanoid, others monstrous, jut from the soil like half-buried warnings. At night, the terrain glows faintly blue with residual stormlight, casting eerie silhouettes that seem to move when not watched. Fungal growths cling to fractured rocks, their bioluminescent veins pulsing in irregular cadence as if echoing a long dead heartbeat. Lightning scars run through the terrain like open arteries, some wide enough to swallow caravans whole. They are the fossilized aftermath of an unholy sundering, a sky covenant shattered when the priests of the Skybreaker Rite dared to rewrite the storm scripture, replacing lightning's grace with void-born ambition. In defiance, Atlas rained down judgment not in fire, but in scars. Obsidian veins from horizon to horizon, each one howling with silent memory. The land bears these wounds like holy stigmata, scars that scream during eclipses and bleed light when lies are spoken upon them. At the heart of Valdareth, the temple stands ruined, but not mute. It was no mere cathedral. It was a sanctum carved from the hollowed vertebrae of the world serpent, its spires crowned with thunderstones etched by the winds of celestial hymns. Here, thunder was not heard but read, lightning not feared but drank as sacrament. The altar, now cracked and buried beneath layers of ash and oath blood, once glowed with stormlight inscriptions so divine they flickered in and out of time. Each glyph pulsed like a heartbeat of forgotten gods. Every stone whispers forgotten rites, and even now the winds echo half-screamed psalms that flay the sanity of those who listen too long. Choir statues melted by divine rage still stand twisted, their faces caught mid-hymn, their mouths agape in silent praise or agony. Beneath the temple's marrow chamber lies the hollow nave, a sub-vault where the names of unworthy gods were scraped from the walls with blades of lightning. It is said the walls still spark when spoken to, and that those who enter emerge days later, eyes white and lips echoing forgotten languages. Whispers still linger of the prophet widow of Emberglass, who witnessed the betrayal and etched her final vision into a relic altar beneath the temple floor. When the storm breaks and the void answers, the blood of oathbreakers shall blacken the sky anew. Pilgrims who stumble across this altar claim to hear her voice in the crackling of stone and see her veiled face weeping molten tears from carvings that should not bleed. Local ashbinders call it the morning scar and refuse to tread near, believing her grief still poisons the wind. Now, amid these haunted relics of divine ruin, Two ancient foes, Serathyn, the stormborn paladin, last of the Embered Choir, and Kael'Vorr, the Wyrmshadow Warlock, bearer of the Hollow Sigil, stand poised. Serathyn is a towering figure of celestial resolve, his 7-foot frame clad in storm-burnished armor etched with prayers to lost saints and battle hymns of the Embered Choir. The metal, a living alloy forged in temple forges now buried beneath sanctified ruins, murmurs softly with divine resonance. It glows with veins of flickering sapphire light that pulse like restrained lightning under his every breath. Each plate bears scars from celestial wars, deep gouges filled with gold leaf sigils, sealing in divine radiance that would otherwise spill like sanctified flame. His helm, a brutal marvel of star-forged alloy, curves into a sharp visor etched with runes of warding and memory iron, designed to trap spectral whispers of fallen comrades. Its crest crowned by the half-burnt feather emblem, a symbol of both martyrdom and unyielding faith, flickers when lies are spoken nearby. Wisps of radiant wind swirl around his pauldrons like sentient spirits, their ghostly murmurs singing echoes of battles long lost. Beneath his helm, a mane of silver hair tumbles in thick braids laced with strands of charred silk and the knotted cords of penance worn since the choir's fall. His eyes, storm gray and ancient, smolder with a deep, sorrowing wrath, twin beacons of fury held in check by mourning. Scorch marks decorate the edges of his cape like forgotten battles etched into cloth, and his gauntlets, worn smooth by countless clashes, hum with residual sanctified charge, flaring briefly each time his grip tightens on the hilt of his relic blade, a two-handed greatsword forged from a fallen seraph's wingbone, its edge whispering absolution and doom. Opposite him stands Kael'Vorr, a specter of abyssal might, an echo of calamity made flesh. His body, elongated and gaunt, is draped in a robe of ever-moving shadow stuff that weaves and unwinds like a sentient storm of dusk. The fabric devours light, adorned with sigils that shimmer with fell intelligence and flicker in time with the heartbeat of the void. His pallid flesh is an accursed tapestry, scarred with the script of the hollow tongue, each rune pulsing with baleful crimson light that throbs in time with unseen horrors, as if they narrate memories not his own. Upon his brow rests a crown of twisted bone and petrified sinew, forged from the remnants of slain seers and adorned with cursed gemstones that murmur secrets in dead languages. From beneath his hood, black smoke spills endlessly, coiling like tendrils of grief around his face. His gauntlet, heavy, ancient, and bearing the hollow sigil, crackles with malice, exuding tendrils of black fire that twitch and coil like memories trying to flee oblivion. Each of his steps leaves behind smoldering imprints on the stone, whispering of desecrated ground and long-dead gods. The shadows beneath him do not mimic his movement. They slither, independently sentient, awaiting command or sacrifice. His eyes are abyssal wells, unblinking voids speckled with the faint gleam of dying stars, as if eternity itself gazed back through them, cold, patient, unfeeling. They face one another where ruin breathes memory, ash shivers with ghosts, and the bones of faith crumble beneath the weight of final reckonings. Now, amid these haunted relics of divine ruin, two ancient foes, Serathyn, the stormborn paladin, last of the Embered Choir, and Kael'Vorr, the Wyrmshadow Warlock, bearer of the Hollow Sigil, stand poised. They face one another where ruin breathes memory, ash shivers with ghosts, and the bones of faith crumble beneath the weight of final reckonings. Serathyn, drawing his rune-etched blade, its hilt wrought from the polished spine of a thunderborn worm, the vertebrae shimmering like trapped lightning. Its blade forged from storm crystal veined with divine script that pulses like a heartbeat beneath glass. The sacred text unfurling in the air around it, like spectral wings, echoing faint hymns in lost tongues. The grass around him wilts to ash. Insects fall dead mid-flight, and birds scatter in terrified spirals overhead. Spectral impressions of long-dead warriors flicker and vanish like smoke, drawn to the blade's invocation. Even the rocks seem to tremble, as if trying to remember a vow they once swore in a forgotten age. The ground ripples beneath his boots as the very air recoils in reverent dread, light dimming in deference to the blade's revelation. His voice cracks the silence like a cathedral bell in a thunderstorm, rich and ruinous. You've desecrated these lands for the last time, Kael'Vorr. The light will no longer suffer your poison to spread. Kael'Vorr, emerging from a swirl of black smoke, his form gaunt and grotesque, flesh twisted by void rot, bearing ritual scars etched in abyssal glyphs that pulse with malignant light. A sulphurous stench heralds his presence, sharp as burning ink and blood-slick parchment. His crimson eyes glow from deep sockets like coals buried in frost, unblinking, calculating. Barbs of bone pierce through his blackened robes, each one whispering in tongues only the mad might understand. Veins of dark energy course beneath his skin like living ink, forming constellations of agony with each pulse, a silent invocation to the hollow beyond. The ash at his feet blackens and writhes in silent patterns, recoiling as if in agony or reverence, drawing infernal sigils that flicker then vanish into the scorched soil. Around him, the air folds inward, shadows bleeding into reality, and distant whispers echo like nails dragged across glass. Colors dull, as though the world itself dims to a monochrome nightmare in his presence. And time bends. Moments stutter and drag, each heartbeat stretched unnaturally, as if resisting the dread gravity he exudes. And yet, it comes crawling to me again, on broken knees, wielding righteousness like a crutch. Tell me, paladin, how many innocents died screaming under your holy banners? Serathyn steadies his stance, sword humming with sacred energy that trembles through his bones like a prayer on the edge of a scream. Each pulse of light down the blade sears his nerves, a reminder that holiness in this world exacts its price in flesh and soul. The radiance is not comfort, it is penance. His knuckles whiten as he grips the hilt, not out of fear, but the weight of memory. Behind his eyes flicker 1,000 faces, some saved, more lost. And beneath it all, a chorus whispers, fragments of sermons, cries of those who bore the blade before him, fragments of hymns etched in anguish. Yet one voice rises above the others, clear and deliberate, neither condemning nor consoling. It calls him by a name no longer spoken, a name buried with his childhood, and offers a question he dreads. Do you fight for penance or for power, child of Ash? The sword sings, but not in triumph, in mourning. The sword sings, but not in triumph, in mourning. The light demands, and he has always answered, even when the answers hollowed him. I mourn every soul lost, and I've cursed the silence that followed, the hollow absence where prayer once dwelled. But you, Kael'Vorr, you tempt oblivion as if it were freedom. I have seen the power in the void and the madness that gnaws at its edges. I chose chains over chaos, not because I am righteous, but because I remember what unbound power becomes. I mourn every soul lost, but I do not run from the weight of my sins. as you do, hiding behind shadows and lies. Kael'Vorr spits to the ground, dark mist wreathing his clawed hands, tendrils of void breath curling upward like sacrificial smoke. The glyphs along his arms flicker with a sickly resonance, their jagged shapes echoing the forbidden sigils of the spiral descent. A heretical cosmogony once whispered by the exiled dust wardens of Osenthar, who claimed the hollow beyond to be both grave and cradle. Each mark, burned into his flesh with the venom of void leeches and sealed in midnight sap, is a vow, a pact etched during the silent rebellion, when the first temples of flame were brought low by shadow cults. They shimmer now, vibrating with cruel intelligence, as if feeding off the very doubt in the air. Your light stammers like a dying flame, Serathyn. I've walked the ruins of your sanctuaries, empty, heard the silence where angels once whispered. Tell me, when you slaughtered the flame-born kin at Haleth's rise, did your god weep? Or did it simply turn its face away? Lies? No, Serathyn, I offer truth. The truth that power is neither good nor evil, it is. The spiral descent teaches that the cosmos was birthed not from light nor dark, but from their schism, the wound where contradiction bled into form. And I will wield that truth in full. The age of kings and gods is over. The age of fire and void begins. Serathyn, voice rising like a battle hymn. Then come, heretic. Let the storm judge us both. With a flash of lightning, Serathyn charges, his blade a shrieking arc of divine fury, tearing through the sky like a burning verdict. Each step resounds with thunder, the ground shuddering under the weight of his holy wrath. Kael'Vorr answers with a guttural snarl, the shadows at his command twisting into a gnarled wall of living darkness, its surface crawling with malformed eyes and whispering mouths. When blade meets barrier, a cataclysm unfolds. Light and void scream into each other, a collision of absolutes. Sacred flame clashes with abyssal ichor, hurling shards of cracked reality into the air like shattered stained glass. The ground howls, fissures bleeding pale fire and black mist as the heavens recoil from the blasphemy of their confrontation. Far away, in the temple of sighing stars, Silai the Sand-Eyed jerks upright mid-trance, her blind eyes glowing with stormlight as she speaks in tongues unheard since the birth of flame. Her attendants scatter, recording every syllable, recognizing an echo of her long-feared prophecy of the lightning-bound rebirth. In the flame-scarred city of Thir Enal, bells in the deep-voiced sanctum ring unbidden, clashing against one another as if shaken by invisible hands. Meanwhile, a child of the Dune Star, heir to the Ashbinder's fractured creed, wakes in tears of blood and trembling revelation, mouthing Serathyn's and Kael'Vorr's names before collapsing into silence as storm clouds bloom above the red dune. All around them, the air is choked with the scent of ozone and burning sins. The storm has begun, and it does not forgive. Kael'Vorr, casting a spell, his arm grotesquely mutating through a dozen inhuman forms, clawed, chitinous, feathered, scaled, skeletal, then raw muscle, each flickering grotesquely as blood and black ichor spurt with each transformation. Bone grinds visibly beneath torn skin, splinters protruding like barbs. Veins writhe across the surface of his skin, glowing with a pale, hungry light. Tendrils of darkness spear outward like necrotic vipers, shrieking in infernal tongues. You are slow, old man. Your faith chains you, while I ascend beyond mortality. Brief flashback flickers within his eyes, a memory blistered in time. A cavern of bone and whispering smoke, where the sky cracked open like rotten fruit, leaking a stench of rot and forgotten souls. and something vast and many-eyed coiled in the void. Its whisper peeled his sanity layer by layer, gifting him a kiss of truth in the form of writhing veins and the taste of metal and ash on his tongue. He choked on the language of ruin. It fed him names never meant for speech, each syllable branding his soul. He screamed, and the scream never ended. I have glimpsed what lies beyond the veil, and it welcomes me as kin. My flesh is but a doorway now, and horrors knock. Serathyn, deflecting the attack with a flare of light, his blade ringing with the screams of fallen seraphs, their echoes gifted to him by the sanctified order of the Veiled Crown, whose saints burned their names from history to guard reality's edge. If this is your ascent, then may the heavens cast you down. He slams his sword into the earth. Blinding light erupts in a dome of incandescent purity, vaporizing crawling shadows and splitting nearby statues in half. Stone weeps liquid fire, and runes embedded in the ground ignite in serpentine, shrieking flames. Holy echoes hiss through the fractures, like the hiss of celestial breath held too long. Kael'Vorr laughs, voice echoing with layered demonic tones, each syllable a shriek of agony from devoured souls. Yes, struggle. Let the wound pillars bear witness. The wound pillars groan, ancient obelisks of flayed bone and rusted sigils, one splitting open like a screaming mouth, its interior lined with teeth made of weeping eyes. A chant begins, syllables scraping at the minds of the living like rusted hooks. Show me the fury buried beneath your sermons. Yes, struggle. Show me the fury buried beneath your sermons. His form bursts into vaporized gore, reforming behind Serathyn with a visceral squelch. His blade of obsidian now pulsating with throbbing veins, its jagged edges dripping with acidic ichor that eats into the stone floor. The blade, known as the Maw of Ankarok, was quenched in the spinal fluid of a dying god and forged in the hollow ribcage of a martyr king. It drinks memory, and its edge whispers secrets no mind should hear. Faint faces flicker across its surface, screaming, pleading, remembering. Serathyn, blood sprays from his ribs in arterial arcs, sizzling as it touches the corrupted earth, but he grits his teeth and counters. You'll find no salvation in my fury, only your end. He whirls with divine precision, cloak searing with divine flame. Runes on his armor flare, seeping tears of gold as a celestial sigil spins into existence above his palm. A burning wheel of stars, each point shedding flakes of blinding judgment. The ground around him hisses, forming sacred glyphs like scars burned into the skin of the world. Thunder roars like a judgment trumpet as light and shadow clash in a cataclysm of raw power. The clash tears at the seams of reality itself, splintering dimensions like brittle flesh under divine autopsy. Time stutters, flickering like a dying flame, as echoes of ancient battles unfold in spectral overlays, each blow splashing ghost blood across the veil. Fallen titans and forgotten saints gaze in hollow silence, their forms cracked with divine fractures. The ground weeps molten light, rivers of lava carving agonized faces into the rock. The air fractures with phantom memories, visions of sanctuaries twisted into meat altars, crying idols bleeding pitch, and shadowed warriors impaled on floating glyphs that hiss their screams endlessly. Among the wreckage of reality, sacred remnants from the broken faiths of Arukai drift, shattered water-offering bowls etched with the drowned queen's sigil, and rusted pendants once worn by Atlas's scattered kin, their lightning-carved edges dulled by aeons of sand and silence. Above, Bleeding constellations convulse and disintegrate, reweaving themselves into cursed starlight that spirals into sentient glyphs, each one barbed, whispering death wishes as they orbit the duel. Reality bends and bellows. Prayers once etched into temple walls claw their way free as translucent specters, moaning in forgotten dialects, spiraling into the combatants like phantom parasites seeking skin. The very air screams, not only with fury, but with the tortured cries of gods long unspoken, some begging for release, some drowning in mirth, and others watching, hungry, as the veil thins to the point of evisceration. Kael'Vorr, bloodied, kneeling amidst broken sigils and cracked stone, laughter clawing through bloodied lips. You feel it too, don't you? The world changing. Your gods grow silent, while the void whispers my name like a lover returned. It speaks of new orders, of endings, of the rebirth that follows ruin. I remember the pact of the wound-sealed sky, when 1,000 sky priests bled into the firmament to chain the first horror. And still the horror's breath seeps through the cracks of time. I remember the relic wars, where brothers turned to ash over fragments of broken divinity, and rivers once sacred turned black with the blood of saints. The screams of altar ghosts still echo where the blessed spires fell, and relic plagues sleep beneath charred sanctuaries, waiting. The air around me writhes, cold and damp as a crypt's breath, stinking of scorched marrow and rusted divinity. The ground shivers beneath my knees, trembling with every pulse of that abyssal voice, a tremor not of earth, but of reason slipping loose. I have swallowed starlight and bled galaxies, Serathyn. What have you done but pray to deaf heavens? Serathyn, panting, barely standing, his blade trembling as much as his legs. Then let this be my final prayer, not for victory, but for memory. That your name is forgotten, scattered like ash from the tongues of men, and mine remembered not in glory, but in gravestone verse. Let the sanctified halls etch my fall in iron beside the names of the thrice martyred paladin, the blood scribes of the dusk scripture, and the prophet of the broken chain. I once trained in the shadow of the prophet's shattered chapel, where his bones are inked with scripture no longer spoken aloud. I bled in those halls and dared believe the chain could be reforged. Let the rusted relics of my creed bear my name alongside theirs, tarnished saints who bled not for absolution, but to warn the unwary. That somewhere, someday, a child kneels before the crumbling effigy of our battle and chooses peace over pyres, mercy over martyrdom. That no soul will ever again kneel in ash and mistake it for sanctuary. His voice wavers, not from fear, but from the toll of conviction. Behind his eyes dance ghost faces, mentors cleaved in half, friends swallowed by the earth, and children he could not save who burned screaming in temples set alight by the void touched. He sees the spires of fallen cities, the charred banners of oath-bound kin, and hears again the lullabies his mother sang beneath a sky unscarred by war. For a breath, Serathyn wonders if names, like gods, are ever truly erased. Still, he tightens his grip, not to pass judgment, but to hold onto a sliver of purpose through the void's howl. They charge, not like warriors, but as avatars of ancient reckoning, leaving behind trails of evaporated blood and ruptured echoes that warp the air. Each step tears open invisible seams, space shrieks, time coils. The snap echoes, not in sound, but in fracture, as if the ancient trigger of Atlas's awakening ripples through the seams of fate once more. Time missteps, staggering like a drunk god, Gravity sighs and falters, pulling sideways as if Atlas dreams still and the dream leaks through, twisting physics into prophecy. Light and darkness collide in a cataclysmic burst so violent it does not illuminate but dissects the world. Kael'Vorr's skin peels back in jagged ribbons, not from heat, but from the void's rejection of flesh, revealing a web of living black fire slithering through bone and nerve, pulsing with rhythms no mortal heart could mimic. His blood evaporates mid-air, hissing curses as it vanishes, and around him, relic shards once buried by age ignite in brief, screaming defiance. Serathyn's armor implodes not just physically, but spiritually, the blessed steel transmuting into rusted spines that embed in his flesh, each thorn a forgotten sin reborn. Lungs flood not only with blood, but with ink-dark fog that smells of burnt parchment and lost oaths. Divine flame erupts from his eyes and mouth, carrying not fire but scripture, a tongue lost to even the gods, scorched into the marrow of his bones. A glimmer of Tikka's glyphwork flares briefly at his throat, as if warding off some unseen reach. The sigil pulses with layered symmetry, a ward woven not only against corruption, but against being forgotten, an anchor to memory in a world that devours it. Not just sound, but sensation erupts, a keening storm of grief, fury, and fractured faith. Symbols unravel mid-air, bleeding golden ichor that stains the sky. The heavens do not shatter cleanly. They convulse, howling as reality bends like softened iron, streaked with glyphs burning and dissolving all at once. The world blinks, reality convulses, and in that instant, creation forgets how to be whole again, as it did when Atlas first woke. Aftermath, the battlefield is silent. Smoke coils from cracked earth. Light flickers weakly over ash. Serathyn lies on his back, armor shattered, chest heaving, his blade broken, but still clutched tight in one hand. Scored into the shattered surface of the blade, a faint spiral glows, an ancient symbol of binding seen throughout the fallen temple. Around him, ash drifts in slow, unnatural swirls, forming the echo of the same spiral, as if the land itself remembers the covenant and now bears its mark anew. Across from him, Kael'Vorr kneels amidst a crater of molten stone. Half his face is burned away, revealing blackened bone and glowing veins of void fire pulsing like a second heart. Serathyn, voice weak but resolute, still alive. Praise the cracked sky and cursed soil. Let the dust record this breath as gospel, and may the shattered stones drink it like sacrament. Though ruin surrounds me, I bless this scorched land. For even in its brokenness, it bore witness to defiance unyielding. I remain unclaimed by void or vengeance, and in this ruin, I offer benediction. He blinks against the smoke, vision swimming in shades of blood and ash. The sky above him pulses like torn muscle, its torn clouds oozing crimson light as if the heavens themselves had hemorrhaged. The fractured earth beneath him crackles with molten veins, licking at his scorched armor, which clings to his flesh in places with melted cruelty. Yet a colder, deeper agony gnaws from within, a void that had once been faith. "Where is your light now?" whispers a voice not his own, a guttural rasp dripping malice, echoing through the bone halls of his skull. Was it worth it? Was any of it? In the haze, images seize him, not of Kael'Vorr, but of Tekka. Her eyes, veiled with sorrow, shone like twin dusk stars. Even storms can blind themselves, she had warned, her voice trembling on the edge of tears. He had laughed then. Now her words carve deeper than any blade. He closes his eyes. The storm inside him, once a tempest of righteous fury, has quieted. But this silence is not peace. It is the inhale before extinction. His hand twitches, nerve-damaged fingers clawing toward the remnants of his blade. It hums weakly with ghost light, etched with fractures that glow like veins filled with dying stars. The blade hums with voices, soft and sibilant, whispering his vows back to him in a tongue long lost. Scripture not of man, but of martyr steel. The ash around him defies the wind, swirling in deliberate patterns, sketching glyphs into the scorched battlefield, sigils older than language, older than gods. One flares briefly with blue fire. He doesn't understand, but his marrow remembers. Something ancient still clings to him, or watches, or waits. Kael'Vorr coughs blood, his chest convulsing, teeth bared in a rictus grin. I saw a different ending once, you know. A throne of ash crowned by silence, and my name carried like judgment on the wind. I saw myself anointed by flame, transcendent in agony, wreathed in the bones of saints I unmade. Seraphs wept black tears, and I drank them as wine. The witch's medallion burned against my chest then, its spiral of thorns whispering secrets older than the stars, promising the ascension denied to the firstborn of ruin. Forged in the dying breath of the last seer of Vathoros, it was meant to seal the hunger. Yet I wore it like a crown, believing it would elevate me. Perhaps it did, into something unworthy. But the visions lied. Or perhaps I failed to become what they demanded. Not a god reborn, but a heretic who mistook ruin for apotheosis. The crown was never mine, only a shackle carved from prophecy's refuse. He shifts, muscles snapping like overstretched leather. Half his face is nothing but void charred bone, skin peeling in sheets, revealing tendons that twitch of their own accord. The void pulses beneath, not as fire, but as hunger. Kael'Vorr Kant. Still alive enough to hear the screams of a dying world. Alive enough to watch the world break with me. Serathyn crawling forward, dragging himself with one arm, leaving a smear of blood like scripture. Not yet. I bound your name to the light, Kael'Vorr. I carved it into prayer and steel. The void won't take you whole. Kael'Vorr, grinning, his jaw unhinging slightly, eyes flickering like dying stars. Then we die as relics, as warnings. May the next gods be crueler and wiser. We both prayed that once, you remember? In jest, beneath the bleached pillars of Tyron's watch. I meant it then. You mean it now. And thus the wheel turns. The earth groans, winds howl, a distant thunderhead swells, not from weather, but from the cries of something waking in the dark. A fragment of Atlas's storm self, long entombed beneath the wound pillars, now stirring with memories of oath betrayal and celestial wrath. It is a forgotten watcher, half light and half fury, bound in the roots of the broken sky covenant, rising once more with every name cursed and every relic shattered. As it stirs, nature unravels. Obsidian spires weep blood-hued mist. The air folds inward like a wound drawing breath. Above, the clouds fracture into spirals of bleeding glyphs, shedding burning script into the sky. The wound pillars pulse and groan, chanting in broken tongues that haven't echoed since the sky first cracked. Their words are not merely echoes of forgotten scripture. They are auguries etched in vibration, predictive syllables that twist reality as they speak. Those who hear them too long lose more than sanity. They begin to dream in spirals and speak truths not yet real, their minds overwritten by prophecies still unfolding. All across the scarred plain, the shadows elongate, twisting into the shapes of screaming saints and forgotten beasts, hallucinations born of prophecy and ash. The Watcher does not roar, it remembers, and its memory poisons the world around it. Across the world, seers convulse in their sleep, muttering sigils in languages buried beneath ages. Prophets wake screaming, their eyes etched with storm runes they cannot recall carving. In the obsidian mirrors of Tekka's shattered shrine, reflections whisper the name of the Watcher in tones too ancient to be heard. The age of remembrance has begun, and with it, a reckoning written in thunder and silence. The prophet widow's final scripture echoes faintly across realms now sundered. In the hour of unbinding, silence shall bear witness, and the sky shall bleed truths too long buried. From the drowned salt marches of Galthar to the frost-racked towers of Kael'Vorr, madness blooms like plague. Highborn courts descend into ritual frenzy, their lords carving spirals into their skin in mimicry of visions none dare describe. In distant coastal cities, ghost storms roll ashore without clouds, scattering ashes that sing in the voices of the dead. In the catacombs beneath the veiled library of Aurum Vex, the dread scribes awaken, hooded archivists sworn to silence who have waited 300 cycles for the Watcher's dream to stir. They take up pens of glassbone and ink of ichor and begin to chronicle once more, their scrolls exhaling mist with every word written. The first line recorded reads only, Book of Final Names, Entry 1. When the storm remembered, silence bore witness. And across the land, the wound pillars chant in fractured cadence. Varuntel Eishkar, Narethel, Velk Tha. Ancient tongue, unknown meaning, yet the very stone shakes at their utterance. Those nearby forget their names. Time slips sideways. Amid this chaos, Kael'Vorr, blood steaming on his lips, whispers one final curse. Elarian Falzor, Vetran Dosh. The ground answers with a whisper of broken lightning, then a tremor, subtle but spreading. Across distant ley lines, altar fires sputter and extinguish. In the eyes of the dying, spirals bloom. The curse lingers not only in sound, but in memory, seeded into the stone, into the air, into names yet to be spoken. Somewhere, a dormant monolith stirs for the first time in 1,000 years. The Squire. Thalen, age 14. Once a low-born orphan taken in by Serathyn after saving the knight's life with a stolen blade, Thalen became his squire not by blood, but by valor. Now he hides beneath the crumbled skeleton of a bell tower that once crowned the sanctum of the First Oath. Its great bronze bell lies split beside him, half swallowed by rubble, its runes dulled by ash and time. Some whispered the bell had not fallen in the siege, but shattered at the moment of Serathyn's death, as if the heavens themselves had cracked open in lament. Others claimed it was the god's voice breaking, a divine toll turned dirge. Where hymns once tolled across the plain, silence now reigns, a silence thick with failure. He clutches the sigil of Serathyn's order, its weight heavier beneath the shadow of fallen faith. Thalen, whispering, trembling. Gods. I saw it. The storm. The shadows. They didn't just fight in the storm, they were the storm, alive and writhing. It moaned like a choir of drowned priests, and the air reeked of blood, ozone, and rotted lilies. Colors bled into each other, melting like stained glass under hellfire, as if reality itself had fractured. Thalen could almost hear voices within the hues, murmuring in tongues older than man, promising ruin and revelation. It was as if the storm had peeled back the skin of the world to show what lay beneath: chaos, weeping and alive. It moved with intent, with malice, like something ancient had opened its eyes and decided to weep fire across the earth. He presses the sigil to his chest, a slab of cold, etched iron veined with faint crimson light. It pulses once, like a heartbeat trapped in metal, and the air thickens with the scent of scorched myrrh. The edges bite into his fingers, but he does not flinch. This is no trinket. This is covenant, an ancient pact etched into the bones of every squire, binding him not just to his knight, but to the dying echoes of a holy order. It is a silent oath, older than scripture, said to awaken when borne by the worthy or weep cold blood when carried by the unfit. There are tales, whispered among the youngest squires, that the sigil has screamed aloud during betrayal, and that some who bore it unworthily were found ashen and hollow, as if the oath itself devoured them. And yet, Serathyn stood, cloaked in ruin, limbs scorched and plate blackened to obsidian. He rose like a saint sculpted in agony. The sky screamed above, a wail of broken heavens, yet he did not falter. His stance echoed the legends of the Binding Knights, an age where warriors marked their flesh with sacred glyphs and bore relic wounds that bled in prophecy. Thalin had seen the scar beneath Serathyn's collarbone, the Eye of Vigil, burned in ritual by a dying oracle. When the world turned away, he remained, a silhouette against the storm, defiant and divine in his decay. As he fell, the ground beneath him trembled, and the sigil in Thalin's hand burned cold. A low hum swelled through the air, not of thunder, but of mourning, like the earth itself had taken a breath to remember him. He looks at the battlefield, where scorched earth glistens black with blood and shattered relics lie half buried among charred corpses. This was once the plain of veiled grace, where the first oath-bound sanctum of the old paladin order stood, and it was not the only one. Across the realm, a dozen other holy citadels lie in ruin, each toppled in what the seers now call the Hollow Crusade, a campaign not just of war, but of unraveling faith. Whispers tell of rot within the high clergy, pacts forged in silence, relics hidden away, and edicts that turned blessings into burdens. Some say it was betrayal, others divine silence, but all agree the order was broken from within before the shadows ever touched the walls. Now it is ash and silence. Banner staves, broken and burning, pierce the ground like accusing fingers. The air is thick with ash and the iron tang of ruin, and the bones of ancient champions lie jumbled with the fallen. Among them rests a cracked helm bearing the faded sigil of St. Halvor, the Iron Star, said to have quelled 1,000 curses with a single vow. Beside his ribs lies a tarnished gauntlet, its fingers fused into a fist around a splinter of twilight glass. Whispers claim it once sealed a demon's scream. His tears mix with soot, carving rivulets through the grime. Thalin, more determined. I won't let him be forgotten. Not just because he saved me, not even because I loved him like blood, but because if I run now and stay silent, his name dies, and so does mine. I'm not afraid of death. I'm afraid no one will remember us. He takes a shard of the paladin's shattered sword, jagged, darkened at the edges, its surface etched with runes that flicker like embers. It hums faintly in his hand, the vibration a whisper of battles long past and oaths unbroken. As his fingers close around it, a cold fire threads up his arm, painful but not wounding, like the sword was tasting him. He turns back just once to the broken bell and the ruin beyond it. A vow, too soft for gods but loud enough for ghosts, escapes his lips. I will carry the silence until it sings again. The metal feels both sacred and wrong, like a relic cursed by reverence, waiting to see if he is worthy or doomed. In that instant, a flicker of a vision, not his own, seared behind his eyes. A field of black banners, a scream swallowed by thunder, a blade too heavy for his hands. He blinked it away, breath catching, heart thudding to a rhythm not entirely his. Something had seen him, and something waited. He tucks it into his belt and begins to run, the weight of legacy and judgment dragging at his side. The blind prophetess, Viora the hollow-eyed, exiled oracle of the Evervale. She sits atop a jagged obsidian cliff that juts like a blade from the earth's wounded crust, a monolith of exile carved by time and silence. The cliff itself seems fossilized in anguish, veined with fractures that glow faintly, as if remembering a fire that once tried to consume it from within. Below, the Evervale rolls like a living fog, swallowing the world in a shroud of shifting memory and lost names. Her tattered robes whip and snap in a wind thick with the scent of ash, grave pollen, and forgotten flowers. Aromas that once rose from the smoldering sanctuaries of the Ember Cant after their blindfolded rites turned to ruin. The wind, it is said, remembers those last hymns sung in smoke and marrow, carrying with it the burden of a failed prophecy meant to cauterize the world's wound, but instead left it festering. It is no mere breeze. It is the breath of mourned futures, scraping across her bones like a benediction-turned blade. Aromas that carry the weight of mourning and the sweetness of something that dared to bloom before it burned. The stone beneath her is not simply earth, but penance, blackened by the weight of vision and etched with the runes of oracles who knelt here before being silenced by time or blade. Her form is statuesque and unmoving, like an ancient idol abandoned by its worshippers, those long-vanished adherents of the Ember Cant, whose hollow-eyed effigies once stood at the thresholds of storm temples, now buried beneath the Evervale's weight. The idol, like her, was never meant to be worshipped eternally, but rather to be forgotten slowly, until only its warnings remained, etched in silence and soot. Her hair, once black, has turned the color of storm-blanched bone, twisting like ivy around the many bronze totems braided into it. Each totem a relic of forgotten rites. Some are ceremonial fragments from vanished cults of the Ember Cant, shaped like tear-slicked moons and scorched feathers. Others are trophies, heat-branded with symbols of storms broken by prophecy. A few are whispered to be charms of warding, etched with sigils so old their purpose has decayed into taboo, pulsing faintly with heat when touched by untruth or legacy's shadow, twisting like ivy around the many bronze totems braided into it. Her eyes, sightless voids laced with ink-like runes, do not blink, for they have not seen light in over 4 decades. Those runes crawl slowly across her sclera, shifting with meanings no living tongue recalls. Fragments of a forgotten semiotic dialect once spoken by the glyph keepers of the drowned sanctuaries, older than ink or law. Each shifting mark is a vestige of a spell language that once chained storms to altars and named the silence between lightning strikes. Now, only her eyes bear their restless grammar, rewriting themselves in mournful defiance of extinction. In certain circles, particularly among the monastic weepers of the 13th Vale, her gaze is feared as an omen of unraveling, while in the bone-laced courts of the Ashbinders, it is revered as a living relic, a moving scripture from a god who no longer speaks aloud. Viora, calm, whispering to no one or to all. Her thoughts drift like fog through her words, barely tethered to the moment, shaped by decades of silence and watching. I remember the battle not as a clash of arms, but as a conversation between calamities. The ground did not shake from footsteps. It recoiled from purpose. Swords were not lifted in valor, but wielded like questions, each strike demanding the world justify its continued turning. When the dawn cloaks ignited the sky with sanctified flame, I saw not light, but the bleaching of history. When the bleeding court answered with their obsidian chants, I did not hear resistance. I heard a dirge already mourning the victor. No side sought triumph, only silence, only stillness. And in that stillness, I watched a truth birth itself in agony. The battle was never meant to be won. It was meant to be remembered, and then misremembered, until it wore the face of myth and the weight of prophecy. Even now, as I speak, my breath carries the sulphurous sting of that fire-choked dawn. My bones ache with the phantom weight of falling ash, each flake a memory burned into my flesh. I can still feel the pressure behind my eyes, the hot silence that followed every scream, as if the world itself had paused mid-exhale, too ashamed to resume. My jaw clenches with every syllable, not from pain, but from the effort of memory resisting erasure. And somewhere deep in my marrow, the ground's scream still echoes, a resonance too old for forgiveness, too young to die. They called it war, but it was prophecy. Two fires, one bright, one black. One born from the radiant zeal of the Dawncloaks, who sought to sear the world clean of corruption in the name of the waking flame. The other, kindled in the ink-veined shadows of the bleeding court, who believed only silence could restore balance to a wounded cosmos. Both burning for the same throne of silence. Neither won, neither lost. Only the world forgot which was which, just as it forgot the war of reaping cinders, when twin heralds, each crowned in ruin, raised a continent in pursuit of a myth-bound citadel that never existed. Among the Ashbinders, it is believed the citadel was not a place, but a person, a vessel of stormblood, and that their chant rites still echo its name in syllables too old to be spoken whole. To this day, ash from that conflict still bleeds into the soil beneath the Evervale, and children born too close to its edge are said to dream in flame. Yet not all accept this vision. The lantern monks of Oathrift claim the citadel was a test, not a being, a metaphysical construct conjured by the will of the dying world itself to weigh the worth of its survivors. They teach that those who chased it were not champions, but penitents in denial. This divergence breeds quiet hostility between the sects, with the Ashbinders accusing the Lantern monks of heresy, and the monks responding with silence, which they say carries more weight than flame or ash. But it was prophecy. Two fires, one bright, one black, both burning for the same throne of silence. Neither won, neither lost. Only the world forgot which was which, just as it forgot the war of reaping cinders, when twin heralds, each crowned in ruin, raised a continent in pursuit of a myth-bound citadel that never existed. Among the Ashbinders, it is believed the citadel was not a place, but a person, a vessel of stormblood, and that their chant rites still echo its name in syllables too old to be spoken whole. To this day, ash from that conflict still bleeds into the soil beneath the Evervale, and children born too close to its edge are said to dream in flame. As if stirred by the breath of buried titans, the ground below her quivers. Her fingers twitch within her sleeves, weaving signs through the air that dissolve like smoke. She tilts her head, listening, not with ears, but with marrow, to something that stirs beneath the stone. A pulse, a name buried in ruin. Vaora, smiling faintly as the wind knots around her. And now, he stirs. Not Serathyn, whose crown of iron drowned in fire. Not Kael'Vorr, whose blade sang dirges across 10 kingdoms, number another. The one who dreams in wounds. The one who waits for the world to forget, so he may begin again. Her laughter rises, brittle as dead branches snapping beneath snow, a sound as hollow as ossified hymns chanted in the catacombs of forgotten saints. It does not travel. It embeds itself in the roots and stone, staining the world with reverberating dread. It echoes unnaturally. Leaves curl, roots recoil, and the canopy above seems to contract, as if the heavens themselves wince at the sound. The air grows colder, not with natural chill, but with the kiss of ancestral grief, tasting faintly of scorched marrow, embalming clove, and petrichor from tombs long sealed. Trees wilt not from rot or flame, but from memory, a memory so pungent it singes the tongue, so cold it curdles the breath in the lungs. The forest groans with a chorus of buried regrets. Bark cracks with sounds like whispered confessions. Frost webs outward across bark like veins crystallizing in grief, forming fractal patterns that shimmer with an unholy bioluminescence. Thick sap wells from split trunks, dark and red as ancient ichor, threaded with silver veins like the veins of dead gods. Each drop falls with the weight of a dirge, steaming faintly in the chill air, the scent sharp as charred parchment and sacrificial myrrh, as if the forest itself were trying to bleed out its secrets. The ground trembles faintly, exhaling dust from ancestral wounds. Even the stones seem to sweat with memory, each one an unmarked gravestone for truths too dangerous to be spoken. In time, this patch of forest will be marked in whispered maps as Vaora's hollows, a place where compasses fail and prayers rot mid-utterance. No animals dwell here, and even carrion insects shun its loam. The bark peels in glyphs none remember carving. Children born within sight of the glade are said to scream in languages dead for centuries. To those few who dare enter, the air tastes like penance, metallic, sour, and infinite. The wind hushes, not as surrender, but as reverence, as though afraid to carry her voice any farther. Thanks for venturing into the storm with me. Every tale in this universe, from the shattered kingdoms to the cursed bloodlines, I write myself. All the art, all the visuals, every drop of atmosphere you feel, that's shaped by hand and pieced together with my passion to create. These stories take a lot of time to make real, so thank you for your patience when the drops take longer than I'd like. If you felt something during this journey, if you got goosebumps, held your breath, or just needed a break from the noise of the real world, do me a solid. Like the video, subscribe for more, and share it with a nerdy friend who needs to touch grass or get scorched by Atlas's lightning. Your support keeps this storm alive.